it's my pleasure to be here. I've been sitting here for some 20 minutes enjoying all of the fun, and I hope the fun is going to continue, even though we are going to talk a little bit about more serious matters this morning. I work for an organization which is part of the Presbyterian Church in the Czech Republic, which does missions, or we would rather call it humanitarian and development aid. And today I will be talking about Syria, as you heard. The title of it is Imagine living as a refugee. When you will be leaving here thinking, gosh, what would I do if I ended up in a tent somewhere outside in the desert? Then I really hit what I wanted to hit. I don't want to talk about hundreds of thousands of people. I don't want to bring you statistics. I want you to realize that being a refugee is a situation of many people around us who are very much like us. It is something that can happen to all of us. Diaconia is the name of the organization that I work for. We say that we are proud of having long interrupted history. There are many companies who say we have long uninterrupted history. We are proud to have an interrupted history. We started in 1800s with grassroots movements in congregations, when people started realizing needs around them and started helping out others. The first diaconal services were homes for orphans mostly, for children from who were abandoned, for children who were from disadvantaged families. It kept growing in 1900s until the World War II, actually until 1948. It was quite a big, remarkable organization in 1948. Then the communist coup hit in Czechoslovakia. The communists took over, and for 40 years, church was prohibited from running any social activities. So Diaconia had 40 years during which we were not allowed to operate any humanitarian effort. Nothing at all. 1989, after the political changes, after what we call a Velvet Revolution, we started basically from scratch again. Nowadays we work very much with people with different kinds of disabilities. We work with adults, we work with youth, we work with children who are disabled both physically and mentally. We have schools for children with combined handicaps. Those are kids who got not accepted into any school because the principals said there is no way we could deal with this type of handicap. They come over to us and we have a program of one-to-one where we take care of these children and help them to develop at least within the limits that they are given. And we have 1,500 employees. We have 40 different locations, so it is quite a big organization. We would not be able to grow in 1990s as much as we did. We would not be able to restart the whole organization if it were not for help from other countries. Mostly Western European countries, Germany, Switzerland, Netherlands. Presbyterians from these countries were coming and helping us out, not only with financial support, but even more with know-how, with teaching us how to do things. Because for the 40 years of interruption, we did not have those experiences anymore. 20 years later, in the year 2010, the Diaconia said, well now, since we have re-established again, we are strong and we are back on track, we should probably pay back what we have received in early 1990s. We should pay back not only the financial support, but all of the help. And that was the moment when Diaconia started its missions in other countries, its humanitarian and development aid. Because we realized we are part of the rich world now, and we want to give away something of what we have received from others. The name of the agency, the part of Diaconia that I am in charge of, that I'm leading, is Center of Humanitarian and Development Aid. And what basically we do are humanitarian efforts in a situation of immediate crisis when there is a need to help people who are immediately endangered, and then development efforts, which means helping on a larger, longer scale in situations, in countries that need to be helped. But still, as we will be talking about that, our aim is to help the people to be on their own, not to be perpetually helping without an end, but to have a goal of helping them to be self-supporting. The only aid that we do in the Czech Republic itself is the humanitarian aid in a situation of a catastrophe. In our case, those are mostly floods. We get flooding every 5, 7, 10 years. We had one very recently, this summer, when we organized hundreds of volunteers who went to towns. We were working in 50, 70 towns. They would be going to people's homes, helping them out, cleaning their homes of all of the rubbish and debris that was brought in by the water and that was destroyed by the water. At the same time, we did collections, we did public collections in order to collect money to be able to support these people and help them out in this situation. This is what we have been doing in the Czech Republic. All of the rest of our work is being carried in other countries. And I will now take you quickly through some of the missions that we have, and then we will be talking more in detail about Syria and the Syrian situation. In Syria, we have been working since last year. Our first project were these cubicles for families, for people who would not be able to live in a tent. We delivered them to a refugee camp in Záhary, where typically the refugees live in tents, but some families have sick family members, some have little babies, some have senior citizens so fragile that they would not be able to live in a tent, and those were the families that we delivered these cubicles to. The other thing that we delivered were shoes and clothing for children. And I visited the camp later, and it was fun just watching the kids running around and seeing the shoes and the clothing that the local producers produced from the donations that we were able to collect. Mali, an African country, is another place where we have been working. Maybe you keep following the situation in Mali a little bit. It has been on the news for the past 12 or 15 months because of some fights in northern Mali where Islamist extremists, very radical Muslim extremists, have been trying to construct a radical Muslim state, and basically Christians who were living there, but not only Christians but also liberal Muslims, had to run to the south for their lives, and they settled around Bamako, around the capital of Mali, but with no means. So we have been delivering medicine to them, blankets, food, just basic necessities for everyday life. Our mission in Ethiopia is already a development mission, a long-term project that we have been running there since 1997, and it is a project of help to widows, ladies who lost their husbands. All of a sudden they ended up alone with children. The husband was the bread provider. All of a sudden he was gone, mostly because of diseases, and the lady has to make money herself and provide for the kids. The project that we run includes schooling for them, so they get training of how to start a little tiny business of their own. Then we help them to find an area where they would be able to start a little tiny business. Would that be a little herd of goats? Would that be selling of some grocery products? Would that be baking the local bread? Just anything that is needed in that area where the lady lives. And we give them some, as we call that, seed money, some money to start up the business with, and then it is on their own. Another project we have in Moldavia, and we are already in Europe. Moldavia is an Eastern European country, probably the poorest country in Europe, with an extremely high unemployment rate, 35–40% of unemployment. Many people in my generation who are Moldavian have no choice but to look for work in Western Europe, the European Union. We have many Moldavians working in the Czech Republic. Moldavians work in Germany, in France, in many other European countries. The problem is that the people who go to work in Europe from Moldavia usually live for several years. Often those are both husband and wife, and they leave the children behind with the grandparents. So you have two groups which are fairly fragile, staying there in the country, and those are the elderly citizens, and those are the children. This project of ours supports churches that take care of these two groups, organize clubs for senior citizens, organize soup kitchens, organize lunches for children so they can come back from school and have a real decent lunch in the church, organize afternoon activities. One of the churches that I visited recently organizes a language activity for every afternoon. On Monday afternoon they have English, on Tuesday French, on Wednesday English, and again French and English till the end of the week. And the kids are very good. I came back home and I told my teenage children that they have a competition growing out there in Moldavia. Because, you know, the Moldavian kids, they want to learn, they keep learning, they can see on their parents how important it is to be able to speak languages. And they are tough, because they live tough life. And I believe that they'll have a good, successful future. Georgia is another country that we work in. Here we work together with an organization which focuses on help to people with mental disabilities. Georgia, a typical post-Soviet country, in the Soviet bloc, whenever somebody had some mental or physical problem, they took them and put them into institutions. Locked them in so they would not be outside running around, they would not be seen. And they believed that the only thing that you need to do to these people is feed them 3 times a day, give them a bed and blanket, and that's all they need. This organization does exactly the opposite. They have been taking people out of the institutions. They have been helping them to start their own life. They have been organizing groups of communal living when people live together, with the support of staff, of course. They have been organizing sheltered workshops, so-called, where people, with the help of staff, produce products of wood or wool, or they make candles, just anything that they can make a little bit of money. So they would also have the sense of providing to themselves, not just being taken care of and sitting in an institution. So this is our project in Georgia. And then we send volunteers to many different countries, in Africa, in Cambodia. These particular 5 young people spent 6 months in different African countries, and then they came back. And very recently, just this summer, they spent last 3 months in the Czech Republic, going to giving different lectures, organizing workshops, and so on. So this was just a little introduction about what we do and where. And let's now focus on the situation of Syrian refugees in Jordan. Here, this is Jordan, a country which is kind of stuck between Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Israel, with the Palestinian territories over here. Jordan is a desert country. The traditional Jordanese people are nomadic people who used to live in the desert. Nowadays there are 6 million people living in Jordan, and something that people don't know typically is about half of them are immigrants, are people who are not Jordanese by birth, who are Jordanese not even by choice, who are Jordanese by necessity because they had to escape from their own country. Out of the 6 million, 2 million of those people are Palestinian, people who had to leave the Palestinian territory or who had to leave the state of Israel when the state of Israel is being established. 700 to 1 million people are Iraqi people who left Iraq during the Iraq-Iran war. And nowadays, the most recent is a group of Syrian refugees, 500,000 of Syrians. When you add it up, you get to 3.5 million out of 6 million who are refugees. Imagine a situation of a country where every second person is somebody who is not rooted in there, who really doesn't know the culture, who came from somewhere else, who has a foreign passport, and especially who wants to go back to their home, who really don't want to settle down there. They are there just by necessity. It makes the country very unstable. Another need of the country is water. Jordan is on the list of countries of the need of water on the 3rd place. There is a great need of water as a resource in Jordan. Only about 8% of the land of Jordan can be agriculture, can be farmed on. The remaining 92% are just desert that you cannot use for agricultural purposes at all. So water is one of the other things. Please.
Was the source of the water the Jordan River?
To some extent, the problem is that the Jordan River is very seasonal, and throughout the dry time, it looks like a pitiful creek. I was there when it was dry, and I was surprised how little the Jordan River was. Being a theologian, I had always big images of the Jordan River. You know, it was something that was in my imagination was strong, and it was water which was rushing. And then we stopped at Jordan. It was a little creek, just kind of slowly crawling by. Za'atari is the camp. Maybe I should show you on the map where it is. Here is Amman, the capital. And north from Amman is this main road that goes to Syria, and a little bit east of the road, about 10 miles east, and about 10 miles off the Syrian border, is the camp in Za'atari. It is a camp which was built by the Jordanian authorities in the middle of a desert, in the middle of nowhere. There is no city, there is no town, there are no villages around. It's just a fenced area in the middle of nowhere. Hearing this, you might be very critical and say, what did the Jordanians think to take the Syrians and put them into the middle of a desert? But on the other hand, when you realize how shaky this country is, how many refugees do they have to cope with already now, I am not surprised at all that the Jordanese government says, okay, let's start a refugee camp here because it's a necessity, but please don't put it near to a town because it would be our end. There would be no way we could cope with that. The camp was designed formally for 50 to 60,000 people. Nowadays there are 150,000 people living in the camp, and still there are more coming. Please.
Is the United Nations helping?
Yes, yes. The UNHCR, which is the High Commissioner for Refugees of the United Nations, is in charge of running the camp itself. They are in charge of the logistics. They provide the food. They provide tents to the people living there. The Jordanian side provides outside security. The Jordanian army guards the fence around the camp, makes sure that nobody unauthorized walks in or out. And the Jordanian Hashemite Society, which is like the king's NGO, that's the non-profit that the Jordanian king founded himself and is leading himself, is the one which leads the non-profits inside of the Jordanian of the Za'atari camp. Our partner is the Lutheran World Federation, which is one of the major NGOs working in the camp. Lutheran World Federation has a long history of working with refugees. You might realize why when you think of World War II. At the end of the World War II, many German people were displaced from their original homes in Eastern Europe, had to leave for Germany, and that was the first moment when the Lutheran World Federation was helping refugees. The first were German refugees. But very soon afterwards, the Palestinians came, who were leaving the state of Israel. And that was the moment when the Lutheran World Federation was very busy in Jordan. And they got a very good reputation, they had very good ties, they have a very good a very good record with the king and with the Jordanian population, because they have been doing very good work for the Palestinian refugees and then for the Iraqi refugees. And that's why it was relatively easy for them to come on terms and reach understanding with the Jordanian side and start working in the camp itself. And that's why we have partnered up with them, because it's a Protestant organization, it's a very professional organization, it's an organization that has good history in this area, and it is an organization that is way bigger than us. Here you have a map of the Za'atari camp. The Za'atari camp is divided into sections. Each section can house 30,000 people, and in most of the sections there are already 30,000 people living. Each section is divided into streets. Each street houses 1,000 people. So it's a city of 150,000. And imagine, this city was not there a year ago. A year ago, nowadays, there were maybe 10,000, 12,000 people living in there. 15 months ago, there was nobody. It was the middle of the desert when there was nothing. And now you have 150,000 people living on one spot from different parts of Syria, living together. In order to organize this at all, each street has a street leader. A leader that the street chooses themselves, and who is responsible to be the bridge, the communicator between the leadership of the camp and between the refugees themselves. I was quite interested by hearing how they choose the street leader, because I was expecting some kind of elections like we do, maybe not billboards really, but at least some kind of an electional process. But it works completely differently. In the street, the heads of the most powerful families, extended families, come together and they reach an agreement on which extended family will be choosing the leader. And that's the most powerful. And then the extended family meets and they decide which portion, which bunch inside of the family will be choosing the leader. And they choose the most powerful one. And then they pick up this, and then these people meet and they decide which smaller family will choose the leader. And they go on, and then they finish up with an individual, and that's the leader. That's the one who was chosen as a street leader. Not very democratic, but in this situation very efficient. Because these street leaders have lots of people who are standing behind them. It's their small family, it's the bigger family, it's the extended family. And those are the other extended families as well, because they had to reach some agreement before they agreed that this extended family will be having a street leader. And since these people have no power except of their natural authority, it is really necessary that those would be people who really have other people behind them. One of the people that we met there, and I chose him as an example, is gentleman Bassam al-Nasser Abu Muhammad. This gentleman lives in 2 tents with his family. They came over about 7 months ago. He has 2 wives, 10 dollars. At a place where they were allowed to build a tent, they got some kitchen utensils, and that was it. Meal 3 times a day, and that's it. And they have been in the camp for months and months. And we asked them how much time do they expect to be there longer. They said, well, we hope it won't be more than several months. But when you look at the situation, you know that it's very probable that they will stay there for more than just several months, maybe a year, 2 years, several years. And you can see that these people have, as long as they are in the camp, they have no future. The girls in their culture are really, at least the older ones, in the age when they should be getting married. They're 22, so that the oldest ones are afraid that their clock is ticking, and if she doesn't get married now, she will stay single for the rest of her life. And when we asked the father said, there is no way I would marry my daughter in this camp, because in our family we were always marrying the guys in our village, and I will not marry the girl to anybody except of a guy from our village. But there are no guys from their village in the camp. Then, after he said that, the daughters kind of started getting closer and pushing on him, and then he said, well, maybe if they really love the guy, I will let them marry him. But you know, it is not easy living in the situation when you don't have any future. Please.
Him first.
Please.
Well, it reminds me, in a way it's very biblical, as when Joshua divided them up into tribes, families, and they selected their leaders at that time. And then it's very biblical in this family sense of how Jacob had to go back to his homeland to select a wife. And then there were some horrible incidents where they chose a wife. I forget the story of Dinah, where it really caused quite a bloody stir when someone outside the family was chosen. So it all has a very biblical ring to me. I don't know how near to the target I am, but.
Thank you. Yes, you are very right. It is, and I would say that this biblical tradition, which is typical for this part of the world, Israel is just next door. This is something that they have been carrying on for centuries and centuries. Yes, thank you.
Are these Alawites, or are they Sunnis, or?
They are Sunnis. Yes, please.
They have left the farm. When they go back,
that is their question as well. It is not that some of them would not be returning already now. They have the freedom to return if they choose so. If they choose to return, they are brought to by the Jordanese military to the border and sent over to Syria. Some of them believe, some of them return because they believe that the part of the country where they live is calm already. Some of them return because they are just tired of being in the camp. But the problem is that the war situation has been so unstable and the situation has been changing so much that most of the people don't feel like they can come back. And they believe that they will have to wait till the end of the war. And I think they are very much right, that they will have to wait for the peace if they want to come back into some type of security. I put in here several pictures of everyday life in Syria, just to remind us of the situation where the people came from. This is Damascus. This is a Syrian city with homes. These people who live in the tents are people who left from their homes. Those are people who never lived in tents before. They had huge stone homes. They were used to living in their apartments. They were used to living in their houses. They were used to their privacy. They were used to closing the door behind themselves and being in their own home, like us. All of a sudden, they are in a tent with the wall so thick, and 5 feet away there is another tent, and there is a different family. And there is no privacy at all. And the tent is very small, and 8 people living on the same spot.
What kind of washrooms or toilets do they have?
We will get to that.
Okay.
A good question, thank you. Gentlemen here, drinking tea together or coffee together. Again, people who were used to socializing, people who were used to meeting friends, people who were used to setting up their schedule as they wanted, as we are. All of a sudden end up in a tent, in a camp, and the other people are setting their schedules for them. A family on a family trip. People in a restaurant, people coming for dinner to a restaurant. A gentleman who is selling his agricultural products on the market. These were the situations that the people left from. All of a sudden they are in the tent. So when they first come, they get a card, so-called ration card, and their family is put into database. I was very much amazed how well the UN has it organized. The UNHCR has a perfect database of all of the people who are in the camp. They know how many family members there are, what the ages of the children are, what the needs of the family are. They just have completely databased each single family. Each one of the families have these cards with a barcode, and when there is a distribution of particular goods, They know which families are supposed to receive those, which not, and how much. Housing, we were talking about it a little bit. Most of the people live in tents. They have no choice. You get your tent and you are happy to be in there. Those who are vulnerable receive these cubicles. This is a picture of the inside of a cubicle. Water, and we are getting closer to your question. There are 2 water containers like this per street, which means per 1,000 people. A job of the younger people in the family, of the teenagers, is to pick up buckets and keep going for water and back all the time between the tent and the water container. Imagine, these are people who are used their whole life to turn the faucet, turn it on and off, to shower to take a shower in their bathroom. All of a sudden they live in a tent, they wash in a bucket, and they have to bring the water themselves. Very different. Hygiene. We are here. 20 toilets per street. 20 toilets per 1,000 people. When we ask them, in several different families, I ask the same question. What is the most imminent need that you have here in the camp? One of the top ones was hygiene. Because when you imagine having 20 toilets per 1,000 people, they cannot be as proper as we are used to. Just there are so many people taking turns in there, and so diverse that the toilets have to look the way they do. And I don't want to describe them too much, but the camp authorities say, well, we have reconstructed the bathrooms 3 months ago, and they are broken again. It's a problem of the refugees. When they keep breaking their bathrooms, we cannot reconstruct them all the time. But I can completely understand that when 1,000 people are using the same facilities, the facilities have to be breaking apart. There is no way. A wash line, clothes line with washed laundry outside between 2 tents. Can you imagine? It's something completely different from a Muslim culture to put your underwear and hang it outside of your tent, out in the street. Something that they would never do back home. But here they have no choice. You need to wash the laundry, and you need the laundry to dry. So you need to put your underwear out there. You like it or not? It's very different than they were used to. Food. One of the things that is positive about the camp is that there is enough food. But again, it's not easy. The bread is being distributed at one time at 7 a.m. on one spot in the whole camp. So the people, again, who were used to going to groceries, who were used to picking up what they wanted, one day this, the other day that. Would you like a yogurt, or would you like cereal? Would you like scrambled eggs? These people come and wait in a line for a piece of bread, which is the same every day. I was talking a little bit about the ration card system. I was really amazed by the way how well it was organized. These are pictures of the distribution of goods. When the people arrive, when good is distributed, the people come with their cards, they present their cards, and then they get a voucher according to their needs of the family. And then male staff distributes to guys, female staff distributes to ladies. Our organization, when we distribute, try to bring the goods directly to the tents of the people. Because we believe that it is less dehumanizing when you don't make people to wait in line all the time, because otherwise they basically wait for everything. So we believe it is way more honorable for the people to bring it to their home directly. It is not as easy. You have to be very careful about some things, some cultural things. For example, we would never send a European, or not even a Jordanese person, to distribute to the tents. It has to be a Syrian refugee. So we need Syrian volunteers who help us with the distribution, because otherwise The Syrians would be offended that a foreigner brought them something. They don't want to live of mercy of others.
What is the distribution of funding for this food and all of these supplies?
The basic necessities like food is being funded by UNHCR. It comes from UN money.
Well, how is the UN funded? Like roughly, where is the food?
It comes from contribution of different countries. According to the size and of the economical power of different countries, they fund the UN. And this comes from the UN budget that is being funded by
But
different
the majority will be
countries.
European and US.
Yes, yes, that is true. But many other things which are on the top of that, like the shoes, the clothing for children, are being donated by individual NGOs like ours. And we use public collections. We just collect money among people.
But so do these Syrians understand where this is coming from? Where these
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. We don't make it a secret. We have always a label which says this has been donated by this or this organization or by people from this or this country. Sometimes this is a very touchy issue.
To me, it's like a military camp. Maybe not as efficient latrine-wise, or maybe they're expecting maybe the latrines, if you have toilets, then they're at a higher level, I think, than a latrine camp. But it would have been a life a young person might have expected during the days of the draft, and you had a war going on. I mean, a real war like World War II, or just for a Roman camp. It's very like a Roman camp, built into squares and so forth. And they would have had latrines, not nearly as pleasant, I wouldn't think, as well. If you've got toilets for them, that's already something. Because I think in the military camps, at an earlier time, there would have been, they had very nasty words for those, but it was hygiene. And if you were a Hebrew soldier going out, you were always taught to take your shovel along. And there was a reason for that.
Yes, exactly. The Bible says that.
The Bible says that, yeah.
You are right. There are some things which we cannot, which we have to copy from the past. And you are right that the modern camps copy the Roman tradition of the camps. One difference we might want to realize, when you talk of military camps, those are soldiers.
I know.
Guys of some age.
Yeah, I was saying a young man might have expected that during the draft.
Exactly. Here you have all the age groups.
I understand that. I understand that.
One of the problems of the people living there is just boredom. Just having the whole day and not having to do anything. Again, those are people who were used to work, were used to leave in the morning, go to work, come back in the evening. People who were used to having their hobbies. Now all the hobbies are back home somewhere, lost, and you sit in the tent. What will you do? Children go to school, that's good. There are 3 schools, overpacked with children, because for 150,000 people, more than half of them are children. There are just 3 schools. With adults, there is a problem. Some of them are kind of inventive enough, so they started their little businesses. There are some little cafes there, but the opportunities are limited. Many of them do volunteer, and I mentioned how important it is for NGOs like ours to have people who volunteer for them. One of the groups which is very vulnerable in this sense are young ladies, are girls are basically teenage girls, I would say, because that is the age when the family is concerned about the girl. The girl is in a different situation. It is not her own village anymore or town, so they don't want the girl to go outside because they are afraid of all of the strangers around. And typically, teenage girls will be bound to sit in their homes, in their tents, and they don't leave the tent. One of the things which we want to do as our next project, and that is our project for this winter, is a daycare center for children and youth. An afternoon center where the children could have some afternoon activities so they don't just run around and throw stones at each other, and a center for girls where the family would really know that they can trust the center and that they can let the girls go there, so the young ladies will be allowed to leave their tents and have some extra activities. Please.
Since they're of Muslim religion, who's gonna be the male escort? In the afternoon?
That is a good question, because fathers are very often missing. Very often it is so that the fathers brought the families in and disappeared. It means that they are fighting in the anti-Sadat army. That's the problem. Please, and then.
Is it possible for the UN is the UN able in the organization to place refugees from Iraq together, refugees from Saudi Arabia together?
This is exclusively a Syrian camp. There are just Syrians,
okay.
but yes, you are right in your question. They are trying to put families together. They are trying to
With
put
the same
people
culture.
from the same area together, but it doesn't always work out. But the attempt is there. Yes, please.
I was going to suggest that if this were a Roman camp, it would long ago have fallen apart, because there's no drill. They used to control their, I mean, the poor, well, this would work for women and boys, but they, in a military, they would just go through useless drills. I suppose you could think of something better than that, than just useless drills, but any army would have to maintain that to maintain any kind of discipline.
You are very much right. But it is a general problem, I would say, of our society, because this is the same way we work with people who are on unemployment. That's a problem of our society. I agree. 7 hospitals are there. It's not bad for a situation, for a 150,000 people town. Those are French military hospital, there is a Saudi hospital, there is a US military hospital, there is a Syrian volunteer hospital where Syrian medical doctors work who happen to be refugees. So hospital-wise, it is very well covered. I would say that the UNHCR covers the basic needs very well. The problem is what is below the surface. Of the dark sides, I have talked already. I don't think that I need to mention them too much. Heat, dust is a big problem. This is, you can hardly see that. It's a dusty picture where the sand is just blowing all around. Imagine just having a tent city in the middle of a desert where the air blows all the time. Cold and hot, hot days, cold night. As you know from a desert, this is exactly the problem. And here you don't have a stone house like the Jordanian people usually do, but you have a tent. Unrests, one of the problems are unrests in the camp, because there is virtually no security force working inside of the camp. The Jordanian army protects only the borders. They make sure that nobody goes in and goes out who is not authorized to do that. But the Jordanian army does not care for security inside of the camp. I think it's a smart decision, because how could you, as Jordanians, try to make sure that there is security among Syrians? It wouldn't work out, and it would be too dangerous probably for the Jordanian side. But in praxis, it means that you are in a city of 150,000 people where there is no one single policeman present. Please.
Does the extended family structure on each street provide a little bit of discipline and cohesion?
It does, yes. Yes, this is the structure that it holds on, exactly. The most dangerous moments, kind of the sparks which start the fire occasionally, are the situation of distributions. When one group feels like they are being discriminated against the other group in what this group received and they didn't receive. But taken into account how shaky it might be, the situation in the camp is very stable. I was surprised myself how peaceful the camp is. There are joys, children running around, different activities. This is an activity which we have organized, or our Syrian volunteers, which we have organized, have prepared for children and parents, because one of the situations in the camp is that despite of the people having so much time, the different generations almost don't communicate with each other. The children and the parents, there's almost no communication, because they kind of fell out of the everyday routine, they fell out of the everyday structure. Each group is distressed, and there is lack of communication. So one of the things we have been encouraging is our activities together. It could be a game, it could be anything else, just anything that the parents and children would do together. And this is a puppet show. This is a show which was prepared by a group of Syrian volunteers, again, for other Syrians. And again, first for the group which prepared that, it made them some sense. It filled up their days. It made them important. And to the others, this is a situation when they are not receiving something from a different group, national group. They are receiving something from their own co-nationals, from their own fellow citizens. Very important. And this is just a picture of our team. These are our volunteers in the camp. This is a Jordanese lady who is in charge of our mission in the camp, and her co-workers. And these are our LWF partners, and this is our team in Prague. It's 8 minutes to 10, and I feel like I can take last question of someone who has not asked a question yet.
Since I came late,
Please do.
What is your organization's name?
The name of it is Diaconia, and I didn't say what it meant. Thank you for the question. It is a Greek word, diakonia, and you might know the word from another Greek word, which is diakonos, which we in English pronounce as deacon. Diakonia in Greek means service. Diakonos is a servant. So we call our organization a service organization of deacons. I said last question.
I know. How big is a Presbyterian group in Czechoslovakia?
Presbyterians are a very small church, only about 1% of the population. Most of the people living in Czech Republic are agnostic, not believing. The strongest church is the Catholic Church. Thank you for coming. I'm looking forward to celebrating the worship with you in 7 minutes.